How's it going, everyone? My name is Keenan and welcome to my channel where a regular guy from Hawaii talks about personal finance, investing, real estate, and construction. Are you thinking about buying a home in the near future and want to know what to look out for? Well, you are in luck because today we're going to be talking about the 10 things that I learned and the mistakes that I made going through the home buying process for the first time. So be sure to watch all the way to the end so that you don't make any of the same mistakes that I did. And if you want to see the video that I made about how I bought my first place here in Hawaii at 25, the link is right above. So if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can join our growing family here. And now let's get into the video. So number one, when you're buying a home for the first time, try to understand all the basic terms. So for me, I did little to no research on any of the terminology, and all I cared about really was my monthly payment. I didn't know what a mortgage was made up of, I didn't know what escrow was, I barely knew what a refinance was. All of these things were all foreign to me and I didn't really take the time to figure out what each one was. So this made it tough when I was going through the process for the first time because I probably could have asked better questions if I knew what all the different terms were. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of some of the terms that you should probably be familiar with when you're buying your first home. Number one is your mortgage. So a lot of times people think your mortgage is just your monthly payment, but I think it's important to know what makes up your mortgage. So you have a thing called principal in your mortgage, and your principal is essentially the amount of money that goes directly to your loan amount. And you have this thing called interest, which is basically what you're paying your lender in order for them to give you the loan. So in my situation, I had a loan of roughly $400,000 and it was a 30-year loan, but my monthly payment was about $2,200 a month. What is $2,200 times 30? So your monthly payment of $2,200 a month times 12 months times 30 years gives you a grand total over the 30 years of $792,000. But your initial loan was only for $400,000, and that shows you how much you're actually paying towards your loan and what is paid in interest. Another thing that can be part of your mortgage is known as escrow fees. So escrow is a third party that manages the transaction between you, the seller, and the lender. When I really thought about it, it made a lot of sense to have a third party mediator when the dollar amounts are so high. So when they say that escrow fees will be a part of your mortgage, usually that'll include something like property taxes and your insurance on your home. And if you have an FHA loan, which is what I had, which allowed me to put less than 20% down, they actually require you to have escrow fees as a part of your mortgage. So I said that escrow includes a thing called property tax. Property taxes is basically the amount of money that you need to pay to your local government in order for you to use the land, essentially. Your property tax is based upon your property value, so the better neighborhood that you live in, the more property taxes you're going to pay. And if you put down less than 20% on your home, you're going to have to pay a thing called PMI, or private mortgage insurance. Private mortgage insurance is in addition to your homeowner's insurance, and basically it's because you don't have a lot of money tied up in the property, so you're a higher risk to the lender. But more on that later. And the last thing is closing costs, and that's the cost that is going to take you to actually close on your loan. Something within closing costs is called points, which is basically the amount of money you need to pay to lock in your interest rate. The more points that you pay, the lower your interest rate. So I think of points as essentially the way that you buy your interest rate. So now that you know all the terms, let's roll into number two, and that's underestimating / not knowing about closing costs. Now granted, it should be your responsibility when you're buying a home to kind of educate yourself about the process, but nobody told me anything about this closing costs thing. I couldn't believe the amount of closing costs I had to pay on my $400,000 loan. All I thought is that you just lock in your interest rate with your lender at whatever interest rate it was at the time. But over time, as we move forward with the points and I finally got my loan estimate, I found out that my closing costs were $12,000. Little did I know about all these extra fees that are included in actually closing your home, and to me that's not an amount of money that you just have in your back pocket. I was very lucky that I was living at home, so I had that amount of money in my back pocket, but I always think about, what if I was living outside and I didn't know about this? What if I didn't have the $12,000 to close the loan? I had nothing to compare it to, I felt pressured for my loan, and I just had to pay the $12,000 in closing costs. A website that I found said that Hawaii closing costs should be around 1% of your loan, so I really should have been paying somewhere in the $4,000 maybe to $6,000 range, not double that. So now you know, ask your lenders and ask questions about why you're paying for the certain services that they're charging you for. Closing costs. So number three, actually running the numbers on your monthly payments. So for me, the intent for this unit was to live in it for a few years and then rent it out. In talking with people that have done this before, and just a general rule of thumb, people say that if you're not going to live in the place for a very long time, it doesn't make sense to pay a lot of points just to get your interest rate down. But what I should have done is that I should have run the numbers to see if it was worth the extra money to get my interest rate down to a point where my monthly payment would cash flow on my future rental. But what I did is I projected the amount of rent that I thought I was going to get a few years down the line, and I just tried to lock in an interest rate that was going to give me a monthly payment similar to what that rent was going to be. And looking back, it probably would have been a little bit smarter to try and pay a little bit more points just so that I can cash flow my unit a lot better. I was actually lucky that things unraveled the way it did with the interest rates being so low as it is right now, so I could refinance my home and bring down my monthly payment. But you don't want to be lucky. You want to have a good plan going into this process. You want to know what your targeted monthly is going to be, and you want to take into account other costs of home ownership into that calculation. When you're thinking about this, think about your future maintenance costs, if you need to do any renovations. All those kinds of things matter when you're trying to figure out what your ideal monthly payment is going to be. So number 4 is the pre-qualification process. So for my unit being a new build with a developer, they actually forced you to go through the pre-qualification process so that they didn't waste any time with some of their candidates for their building. So basically in the pre-qualification process, the lender is letting you how much money you can qualify for a loan, so that when you go out there and you go and look for homes, you're not looking for something that's out of your range. They'll take a look at your income, your credit, your assets and your liabilities, and they'll make the determination from there. But a word of caution, the pre-qualification process is for what you can qualify for a loan. It is not the same thing as what you can actually afford. So during that process, you can ask the lender and project some sort of monthly payment to see if that works within your budget. So this is such an important step in the process because it helps you prepare so that you're not unnecessarily looking at homes out of your price range, but it also sets you up for success when you find that ideal property and you know that you can afford it. And even though if you go to a certain place to get pre-qualified, that doesn't necessarily mean you still have to use that place when you get the loan. So the pre-qualification process just helps you be more ready for the opportunity when it arises. So number 5 is knowing about PMI or private mortgage insurance. So in my situation, they had a sales pitch saying, you only need to put down 10% on this home and you can go get a new place in the middle of Honolulu. So I thought, oh great, I don't have to put that much money down. I'm so special. I'm a first-time home buyer. This is fantastic. But then during the process, I find out that I have to pay this thing called private mortgage insurance because I don't have enough down. And my argument with them was that my income could easily make the monthly payments. So why do I need to pay this extra $110 a month? Just for your security. I thought I was a low risk borrower for them, but it really didn't matter. It was just a matter of how much percentage of down payment you had. And I was supposed to pay this extra $110 a month for like 6 years. That's another fee that you have to consider as a part of your monthly payment. It won't be very apparent when you're doing the calculations in the first place. So if you have enough money to put the 20% down, I would suggest you do that so that you don't have to deal with this. And again, private mortgage insurance is separate from your homeowner's insurance. So it's purely just an extra cost on top of your mortgage. So number 6, not shopping interest rates. Now for me, I didn't get to do this because 1, I wasn't very informed on the process, and 2, I didn't really start till very late, so I felt like I had a time crunch for when I needed to close a loan and actually get my keys. So the thought of shopping around interest rates to different companies may kind of go against your natural human tendencies of courtesy. But the reality is this is your money, and if this is the first time that you're actually going through the home buying process, you really don't have a great gauge of what's actually out there and what's fair. So when I actually went through my refinance process, that's when I actually started talking to a bunch of different lenders around and asking them about their different prices. And then what I found is that if you're very upfront about it at the beginning, they actually appreciate it, and then it makes it more competitive for them to give you a good number. Because even on their end, they have to convince their people to give you the best number, and if you're not giving them some sort of incentive of competition, they're not necessarily going to always give you the best price. So be upfront, let them know that you're using their number to shop around so that you can get the most competitive price for yourself. It's your money and you really owe it to yourself to get the best value. And speaking of value, that's going to bring us into number 7. I did not research the true value of my home. So similar to me not running the numbers diligently on my rental situation when I first bought it, I didn't really understand my market entirely when I first bought my unit. I did some research and I knew that it was undervalued, but I didn't know exactly what amount that was. It wasn't until later when I got my reappraisal on my refinance, basically telling me that I built $120,000 worth of equity within a year. But again, was I really planning? Did I really know about that? Not really. I knew it was going to go up, but I didn't really know by how much, and I think that that's knowledge that you need to have when you go into buying a home. So especially if you're buying your home as an investment, make sure that you're really researching the areas and understanding the value of each location. And then dive deeper into the homes within that region and see which hidden gems are out there that are selling for less than the value of the area. So number 8, and it's more specific to living in a condo, but really understand the value of a parking stall. Do you have a parking stall? where is your parking stall and how big is your parking stall. People don't really realize until they actually live it is where your parking stall is really can become a burden on your life. Some parking stalls are very spacious and allow you to get in. Some are not, and it's not always a given that the amount of bedrooms that you have in your unit will equate to the number of stalls. Also look at where your parking stall is in relation to the elevator. So imagine you're like me and you hate making multiple trips for groceries. You don't want to be walking a mile between your car and the elevator. Also think about what floor you're going to be on. I would say somewhere in the middle is good because if you're too close to the bottom, sometimes you can be more susceptible to theft. But if you're too high, it takes kind of long and it's kind of monotonous for you to actually get to your parking stall. And another thing as we progress in car technology, consider getting a stall that has an EV charger. Likely if you're getting into a new building, it's probably worth you putting in the dollars up front because actually post-installing conduits and getting power to an EV station later on will probably be more expensive. So number 9 is your maintenance fees. Again, this is building specific, but don't underestimate the importance of your maintenance fees. And don't be surprised, we had a maintenance fee hike of over 50% in the first year of getting into the building. And I know that my situation is kind of one-off, but just know that the developer of your building has complete control pretty much of what your maintenance fees are going to be. And maintenance fees only go up. As the building ages, as the community ages, it's only costs more and more to maintain it. So that's why sometimes people stray away from condos for investments because they know that the maintenance fee is going to eat into their cash flow on the rental. So just make sure that if you're investing in real estate, you understand what the maintenance fees are going to be and project an increase over the years that you're going to own the property. And number 10, you can't always believe the building sales pitch. So again, the building that I bought into was a brand new building meant for first-time home buyers in Hawaii. So as I was going through the purchasing process, the salespeople there were basically selling luxury at a fraction of the cost. But even not necessarily this building as well. Being in construction, you also see that developers try to sell a little bit more to their consumers than they really want to pay for. And this could be anywhere from like the selected materials in your unit, the lighting choices, and how big your air conditioner is going to be. And the way that they write all these contracts, especially for us as first-time home buyers, it makes it really tough for you to even fight any of this stuff, and you're kind of at their mercy for their decisions. So just always understand the salespeople are not part of the actual construction and development process. They're just there to sell you something. They're not always entirely informed about what's actually going into the project. Well, thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate your time and I hope you learned something and feel more prepared for your first home purchase. And please comment below if you have any further questions about this topic or anything that I didn't cover in this video. I just don't want people to make any of the same mistakes that I did, so if I can help just one person out there, then I'm happy. So as always, please like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any more videos from me and you can help our family grow. Thank you again for watching and I'll see you on the next video.